Story the nation is talking about. A gay college student leaves a bar with two men he'd just met.
Aaron and Russ said, let's pretend like we're gay and we'll rob him and take his money.
The next day, Matthew Shepard is found beaten beyond recognition.
My friend was begging for his life.
His body lashed to a fence and displayed like a trophy.
You think they were proud of what they did?
I don't see any other reason why they would have hung him like that if they weren't.
John Quinones hears the shocking story of what's being called an outrageous hate crime from the people who were there on a night of terror.
Matthew Shepard will be buried this Friday. He's the gentle young man from Wyoming who was savagely beaten, tied to a fence, and left to die. And the government says, on average, every week in America, 24 people are physically attacked because they are gay. And yet this one young man has become a symbol of what can happen with unacknowledged cruelty and prejudice.
What really happened on that terrifying night? How did a chance meeting in a crowded bar result in such a horrible crime? John Quinones sought out key witnesses, and even a woman charged as an accessory after the fact, to reconstruct the last few days of Matthew Shepard's life and its tragic end.
Some say what happened at this fence post in the cold and barren foothills of the Rockies was a hate crime. Others try to pass it off as just a robbery. The one thing that's clear is that what happened to Matthew Shepard was horribly brutal.
These people took him out and tortured him and hung him on a fence and battered his head in.
He said it was not intended on a murder. They did not intend to hurt him this badly.
Kristen Price, who asked us not to show her face, is the girlfriend of one of the two men accused in the beating.
They just wanted to beat him up bad enough to teach him a lesson. Not to come on to straight people and don't be aggressive about it anymore. Once a person tells you that they're straight, leave them alone.
It happened in the western town of Laramie, Wyoming, the kind of place where it's okay to be gay as long as you keep it quiet.
The epitome of don't ask, don't tell.
Walt Bolden is one of Laramie's gay residents.
You would never go anywhere in Wyoming and hold hands. You would never go on a dance floor and dance with your partner. You would be careful how you walked.
Bolden was a professor at the University of Wyoming and Matthew's mentor, his friend of 6 years, and the first person that Matthew told he was gay.
To me, it was an incredible honor. I mean, it is such a risky thing to do. I took it as one of the biggest compliments I've ever had in my life. I mean, he was a very vibrant, personable person, but in a lot of ways, he was also a very private person. So he really had to have a sense that you're somebody he could talk to before he would reveal that kind of thing.
Although Matthew was born in Casper, Wyoming, with his family, he traveled the world, going to high school in Switzerland, starting college on the East Coast. But last fall, he decided it was time to come home again to the University of Wyoming in Laramie.
He liked it here. He talked about how comfortable it was and that this really was him. I mean, that small town, you walk around town and people meet you eye to eye and they smile at you. And I mean, he loved that. And he talked about how safe he felt here.
Last Tuesday, Walt and Matthew planned to go out together.
Actually, Tuesday was my birthday. And we were going to go to a movie together. And he called and he had gotten behind in his French and he had to go to class the next day, so he was going to study.
But later that night at around 10 o'clock, Matthew decided to go out for a drink. There are no gay bars in Laramie. In fact, there are none in the entire state of Wyoming. So he decided to drop by the Fireside Lounge, one of the few bars in town where a gay man can feel comfortable, alone.
I came up, in fact, I remember he ordered a Heineken. I can distinctly remember what he ordered.
Matt Galloway, the bartender at the Fireside that night, had seen Matthew before and was impressed by him.
My first word would be kind, polite. Very few people do you find in a bar that say please, say thank you, religiously. Matthew did that.
Galloway says Matthew had been in the bar about an hour when two strangers walked in, Russ Henderson and Aaron McKinney. It was around midnight.
The reason I distinctly remember these individuals is because they came in and ordered a pitcher of beer and proceeded to dig in their pockets and pour out a bunch of change on the bar to pay for a pitcher of beer, which I found, somewhat peculiar. Obviously, they're strapped for some cash at this point in time.
It wasn't long, he says, before they struck up a conversation with Matthew. Kristen says McKinney told her that it was Matthew who approached him first.
He said that a guy walked up to him and said that he was gay and wanted to get with Aaron and Russ, and that he got aggravated with it and told him that he was straight and didn't want anything to do with him, and he walked off.
There is no way, absolutely no way that happened that way. Matt, that just was not Matt. He absolutely was not like that.
In fact, Walt says police told him it was the two suspects who first approached Matthew, telling him they were gay.
And somewhere in the conversation, Matt indicated he was gay. And knowing Matt, he would have had to have felt real safe with these people. So somewhere in the conversation, they presented themselves in a way that he felt really safe.
And Aaron and Russ said that, let's pretend like we're gay and we'll rob him and take his money. So they told him that he was gay, that they were both gay, and let's go back to Aaron's place and all get to know each other better.
The last thing bartender Matt Galloway remembers is Matthew and the two men leaving together. No one had any idea where they were headed. It was shortly after midnight, early Wednesday morning. Aaron McKinney and Russ Henderson were leaving the Fireside Bar with a new acquaintance, Matthew Shepard, McKinney's girlfriend.
So the guy got in the truck with them, and they drove on past Walmart, and Matthew said, well, where's your house at? And he said, well, guess what? I'm not gay, and you just got jacked. Give me your wallet. And he gave him his wallet.
No one knows what went through Matthew's mind as he was driven out of town and into the hills. Police say the suspects headed down this bumpy road, beating Matthew along the way, finally stopping at the end of the road and this wooden fence.
He said that Russ tied him up to the pole and that they took the butt of the gun and they beat him with it in the head and left him there.
Matthew was left for dead in the cold Wyoming night. Temperatures were in the 30s. By sunrise, he was slipping into a coma.
He was found bound to this post in this area right here.
He was tied. What part of his hands were tied behind him?
That's correct.
Rob Dupree and Jeff Bury are the chief investigators on the case.
What can you tell us about the shape the victim was in?
Critical, massive head injuries. There's obvious immediately to the deputy that had arrived on scene that it was a massive assault.
These people took him out and tortured him and battered his head in. They tied him up on a fence like some kind of trophy. I mean, like, here he is, this is what we've done.
Matthew remained here, tied to this fence, for 18 hours, alone and bleeding extensively. It wasn't until 6:30 the next evening that he was finally discovered, quite by accident. A young man who had been riding his mountain bike in the area slipped and fell at the end of the fence. As he got up, he spotted what he thought was a scarecrow. In fact, it was Matthew, by now unconscious.
He was taken by ambulance to Ivinson Memorial Hospital in Laramie. By now, suspect Aaron McKinney had returned home.
He was crying and he was throwing up. And he kept on telling me he didn't deserve to live. He didn't deserve to be talking to me. And he just came in and hugged me and was like, I've done something horrible. I just deserve to die. And I asked him what had happened, and he told me he wasn't exactly sure. He just had thought maybe he had killed someone.
Later that day, Aaron McKinney and Russ Henderson were arrested. Their girlfriends, Chastity Paisley and Kristen Price, the woman who spoke to us, were charged as accessories. Police say they concocted alibis and concealed evidence. From the streets of Laramie to the White House, this savage beating was called nothing less than a crime of hatred.
I don't think it's a hate crime. I mean, maybe that's what everybody's pushing it onto, but I don't think it's a hate crime.
I know in the core of my heart it happened because he revealed he was gay. And it's chilling, and it's not only chilling as a gay man, I think it should be chilling as any person, because Matt was the boy next door. He could have been anybody's son.
And if it wasn't a hate crime, why such a savage beating?
Humiliation, maybe, because Aaron and Russ both had friends at the bar. And I guess it's known well that Matthew is gay, and them being seen talking to a gay man and leaving with a gay guy, humiliation.
When I was actually able to see him, if they had asked me to go in that room and identify him, I couldn't have found him. He was so savagely beaten, he didn't look at all like Matt.
While he lay unconscious, Matthew's parents wrestled with a decision about whether to take him off life support. They were spared that agonizing choice when on Sunday night, with his parents at his side, Matthew slipped away. His family issued a statement.
Matthew's mother said to me, please tell everybody who's listening to go home, give your kids a hug. And don't let a day go by without telling them that you love them.
The news of Matthew's death touched the nation. There were memorial services in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, but nowhere were people brought together like they were in this little corner of Wyoming.
What does that tell you about Laramie?
That it's not the rednecks that everybody thinks it is. It's not this place where people aren't welcome, that are minorities, that have different sexual preferences. It's not like that.
Matthew Shepard would have been proud.
I think he would be as touched as all the rest of us. I feel graced by God that I got to spend as much of my life with him as I did, and that he was as big a part of my life as he was. And I don't care how savage these people are, they can never ever take that away. And they can't take that away from all the people he touched.